Hi, this is Paul. Because I've been away from my desk, I haven't been able to give a whole bunch of good stuff that has come out recently the attention it deserves. One of them was Jordan Peterson's conversation with Bill Maher. Now, I've been following Bill Maher all the way back to when he was on ABC television and his TV show Politically Incorrect. I loved that show. That was one of the first shows that I ever recorded on VHS, and then maybe on TiVo. I don't know if it's still on TV back with TiVo, because I found Maher in many ways was sort of doing like I like to do in Estuary, which is just having conversations with different people. And I found Maher all the way back then in, I should see if I can find a picture of it or maybe a clip from it. Yeah, so here's some of the YouTube searches with it. I don't know what happened with respect to him in 9/11. Maybe that's why the show got canceled. But I always appreciated Maher because he would have a real diversity of people on the panel. He'd have some regulars, and there was a young woman who was an evangelical Christian, and she would speak her mind on a bunch of things, and Bill Maher would sort of laugh at her, but he respected her and he listened to her, and so I always enjoyed Maher. And then he went to HBO, and I didn't have HBO, so I pretty much lost track of him. And then, of course, Jordan Peterson went on the program, and they had that little clip, and they had the little after shows on YouTube, and I caught up with them then. And then when I switched to AT&T, then I could get on HBO Max, and so now I can watch Bill Maher's show, which I watch from time to time. So I enjoy Bill Maher. Bill Maher, of course, in 2008 did this thing Religulous, which I've never watched. I should probably watch it. But then, of course, Jordan Peterson's been on, and when this talk opens, Bill Maher is sort of fanboying on Jordan, and Jordan's having a good time, and there's so many aspects to this conversation. Now, Maher is kind of in the Scott Adams camp when it comes to marriage. Maher basically says marriage is a bad deal because you get stuck with one woman, and he'd rather have, as it's said in the Barbie movie, all these low commitment these low commitment girlfriends that Bill Maher basically wants to have women around to have sex with. That's basically what Bill Maher wants. That's what he wants from women. Now, I'm sure he has women friends, and I'm sure he'll say some of his best friends are women, but when it comes to, let's say, building a life or building a family, Bill Maher basically says that doesn't work for me. Basically, women are for sex, and that's what they're for. Now, Maher makes no secret about what he thinks about the Bible, that he basically continues to maintain the New-Atheist posture. And so what makes this conversation so interesting is that, of course, Jordan Peterson's next book is, I think, designed by Jordan to be sort of a thorough takedown of New-Atheism. And that makes Bill Maher an interesting conversation partner. Now, there are a lot of elements to this, especially the marriage element, that's really worthwhile watching. And maybe I'll get a chance to come back to it and comment on that too. But what I really was curious about was how Jordan would handle Bill Maher's, the Bible is ridiculous. It's just offhanded things. And of course, Jordan just finished the Exodus seminar, and Jordan takes the Bible seriously. And I'm going to talk about that when I dig into the Exodus seminar a little bit about, okay, how is Jordan using the Bible? Because that question of how he's using the Bible is really important to understand, I think, the impact that Jordan is having in the popular culture. So at this point, Bill Maher is sort of joking about the fact that he hated being a child. He hated growing up in school. He didn't like being bullied. He grew up in New Jersey. It's interesting. A lot of these, Bill Maher, myself, a whole bunch of people that grew up in Jersey about the same age. And of course, most of us aren't as famous as Bill Maher, but we sort of come from the same place.
It isn't obvious at all that virtual communication facilitates forgiveness, right? It's really good at facilitating the vengeful mob.
What is?
Online communication.
Oh, online.
Now, another interesting aspect of this is that, and many people have noted it on Twitter when I talked about this a little bit on Twitter, that for being such a fanboy of Jordan, hierarchies bind and blind, and Bill Maher doesn't really have that much time to listen to Jordan Peterson videos because, and you saw this especially early on, people would have Jordan on and they're, oh, Jordan, I love what you're doing. They heard a soundbite or two and they're sort of a fan of Jordan Peterson's, but they don't really pay a lot of attention to a lot of what Jordan says. The first live event I went to was called The Simulation in San Francisco, and the guy interviewing Jordan said a few things, and a bunch of us who were from our local meetup looked at each other like, what's Jordan going to say about this? Is he going to be is sort of Twitter Jordan going to come out? But no, this is very much winsome Jordan when he's trying to turn the New-Atheist Bill Maher. Maybe that'll be the title of this video, something like that.
Right? Because you don't have mobs of people who are going out together to forgive.
No.
No, that's not happening.
And I love that observation. You don't have mobs of people that are going out to forgive. And then what Bill Maher says right here is so interesting.
Right.
In the Bible, it does.
Yeah.
In some ways, that's the story of the New Testament church. You have mobs of people going out to forgive. And, of course, you had that in many ways in the American Civil Rights Movement with, Dr. King and the marches. You had mobs of people that were trained in nonviolence to turn the other cheek, to not hit back. You had mobs of people going out to forgive. And so on one hand, Bill Maher, laughs at this, oh, you Bible. But of course, the Bible is ridiculous for Bill Maher.
Yeah, but it doesn't make itself, and even if it does happen online, it doesn't attract attention.
You were talking about Sodom and Gomorrah earlier.
Well, actually, it does attract attention. And when it is done in the culture, a big part of the power unleashed by the civil rights movement was when mobs of people went out to forgive. It shocked the nation into dismantling Jim Crow.
That was you, right?
It was me. It was Marion Williamson.
Okay, so I was there when we were making Religulous. That was one of the places, and this is the one with Lot's wife.
Yep.
So I feel like I studied this, and I didn't remember these intricate permutations there where he
and again, what you tend to see, understandably so, the Bible is a large book, and I loved a College Humor video put out years ago where the guy basically makes the observation that, religious people are nerds. They become nerds about the intricacies and details of religion, and you can't really expect Bill Maher, although the reputation, mobs of people going out to forgive, that was in his mind.
God was bargained down to 10 people.
Yeah. That's actually why they go to Sodom, is to look for the 10 people.
But it started at 40?
Started at 40.
I just love.
And they went to Sodom to look for the 10 people. And this is where I love listening to Jordan Peterson read the Bible because, sometimes he's wrong about some things. But he has a fresh take on it that, was that what they were doing? Because you just get accustomed to these stories and you don't ask yourself, well, of course, the text says they were going down to see for themselves, and there's lots that you could think about that. But to look for the 10 people, you almost have the sense of the angels going about and say, putting marks on people like at Ellis Island, in chalk. Okay, you're righteous. We're going to count up to 10, but, woeful, we're going to have Lot, his wife, and 2 sisters, so.
The way they love the Bible, and it's the greatest book, and they swear on it, but it has these things that are comically stupid and corrupt. God.
And okay, so Jordan, a big part of his, even still, if it's true that, so I talked to Spencer Clavin at the thing, and he said, the most watched show on Daily Wire Plus is What is a Woman? But after that, it's the Exodus Seminar. And so Jordan Peterson has almost become the secular Bible man. And how's he going to respond to Bill Maher saying the Bible is stupid and ridiculous?
It is so corrupt in the Bible. You can, and they swear on it, but it has these things that are comically stupid and corrupt. God is so corrupt in the Bible. You can bargain
And okay, God is so corrupt in the Bible. I mean, listen to the Exodus seminar. That is not Jordan's take. That is the Bible in the Exodus seminar is the paradigm for non-corruption and non-tyranny.
You can bargain humans. He does things that are so capricious and cruel and, petty.
And this, of course, what Maher is sort of saying here, this is just sort of the tiny, low-resolution, agreed-upon. Mobs of people are going out to say these things about the Bible.
I mean, he's very Trumpian.
Well, I've been walking.
And now I was so curious, how is Jordan going to respond to this? And Jordan's in full winsome apologist mode here, and it's so interesting watching Jordan in this space now, because of course when he broke through in 2016, 2017, before the biblical series, nobody would expect him to make a series about the Bible. But now, of course, he's 5 books into it and wants to keep going.
He's very Trumpian.
Well, I've been walking. I released a series started to release it yesterday on YouTube on the story of Exodus. And it's a 16-part series, 32 hours on the book of Exodus. Yeah, I had 9 people come down, and I've been walking through the biblical court.
And this is where I know camera work means we're focusing on Jordan because he's talking. I understand that, but I really want to watch Bill Maher. When you watch me do my conversations, that's why I don't have cuts from one speaker to the other. I always keep them both up because I really want to know Bill Maher's body language while Jordan is saying this, because he's been fanboying on Jordan the whole time, and now it's Jordan really likes the Bible.
That was actually something I wanted to talk to you today about.
I love it.
Yeah, well,
I love it that you're a real professor.
That's what he loves. You're a real professor. You're an academic. So these antiquities and anomalies of the Bible you're still interested in, but we urbane comic folk, we just laugh at it.
You're like a personality and a TV guy and like a great voice, but you're the real deal. You're an academic.
So
and no, George's okay. I'm happy you're buttering me up and I've got status with you, but I want to change your mind about the Bible.
There's a very interesting idea that lurks behind the notion that you can establish a covenant with God, and you can tell me what you make of this. It's like it's a reflection of the fact that human beings bargain with faith.
And I'm watching Maher, and Maher just looks sort of maybe a little bored. Maher doesn't come off real well in this interview, I don't think. Again, one of the things that happen when we become rich and famous. Now, Maher in many ways seems less captured by his money and his fame than others, because Maher is a populist in many ways. He's sort of a libertarian populist and wants to at least see himself as looking out for the little guy. And he did I thought, a really fun riff on flying private. So Maher, more than many others, has, cannot take himself too seriously. But again, I'm glad the camera's right here, right now.
Fate all the time. We bargain with the future all the time. So and here's how we do it. So, and this is what you teach your kids. You teach your kids that if you forego immediate gratification, so you give it up, sacrifice it, because that's a sacrifice, that the future will be better as a consequence. Well, that's okay. It's a contractual relate. Well, that's what's trying. Right. That.
Okay. I want to talk about the seeker movement, because the seeker movement sort of came up in the 80s and 90s and was one of these minor revivals in America. And if you pay careful attention, who's in the seeker movement? Bill Hybels, Rick Warren. If you pay attention, and this is true of many evangelical big churches too, they still lead with wisdom. And the idea is, if you and I can find agreement on some point of wisdom, and I can show that I derive this wisdom from the Bible, maybe the Bible can have more credibility with you too. So Jordan is basically taking a page out of the seeker movement. Now, he's not taking it from them because he doesn't know anything about them, but it's basically the same tactic, the same move.
That's the thing that's so interesting. Okay, it's a contractual relate. Well, that's
and
what's
it will,
trying.
usually.
Right. That's the thing that's so interesting, is that it actually will.
If you don't have that piece of cake tonight,
Yeah.
you'll be healthier tomorrow.
Right, right. And if you don't go off and play with your friends immediately after school, but play the piano for 20 minutes, then
Right.
in 10 years, when you're actually a musician, all sorts of
Right.
okay. But it's, see, this is something that's very uniquely human, because human beings have learned that if we give up, there's
Okay, and so then, this is the point from the Bible. Let me know what you think. It's, of course, Jordan's line. Now he's going to move to psychology and say, okay, this we know from psychology. Bill Maher, science, reason, these things, he'll like that. But again, the whole point is saying this is actually what we get from the Bible.
certain forms of immediate gratification. If we give them up, which means we offer them up, it's a sacrificial offering, then we can make a covenant, a bargain with the future.
Right.
That's what's being reflected in those stories, where the notion is that you can bargain with God.
I love all that shit. I went to Cornell. I took a Bible course. But all the stuff I took, I knew I was going to be a comedian, so I didn't take any courses for any other
And this part is fascinating.
reason why. Then, this looks interesting. And I'm a liberal arts major. And so, all those courses where they go into such detail and they really delve into going over the text in a way that they try to understand how those people were thinking. And that, to me, is just delicious academia. I remember I did not have...
Oh, now we have light on what he said. Oh, I love it because you're an academic and you're... But what's super interesting is that was, of course, the modernist approach to the Bible. The symbologists or the evangelicals, evangelicals in their personal relationship with God, that's basically a form of re-enchantment. And another one of the thoughts that I had, or videos while I was away, was, it should show how almost every revival for the last couple of hundred years has been a re-enchantment revival. And so Bill Maher is, we studied the Bible, to study the Bible, to try to, sort of like an anthropology text where we try to study the strange people from whom we receive this book.
Any sort of social life at Cornell, but I did have all these intellectual epiphanies from all these professors who you remind me of, who would introduce these ideas and okay, so I knew that story all these years, and now I'm really understanding it. I kind of miss that.
We released this series on the Daily Wire first, and it was the most popular thing they ever made, apart from Matt Walsh's documentary on What is a Woman.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange because it's very academic. It's a very academic seminar series.
Well, the Bible is...
Okay, so there again, Jordan's looking for agreement. Let's find agreement so I can have influence.
So well known, even by people who haven't read it. And by the way, a lot of the people who put their hand on it and love it so much have never read it. Certainly not all the way through.
That's very true.
It's a big, long book.
Yes, it is.
It's full of mostly nonsense. Once in a while, it stumbles upon wisdom. It's...
And that now is sort of the New-Atheist take. You hear it from, you heard it from Sam Harris in his conversation with Chris Williamson.
But come on, you got to give these people their due. It was written as, first of all, it's an anthology.
I'm going to tell you a story.
Okay.
Okay, so Jordan's going to redirect him. Okay, let's give the Bible another hearing.
Tell me what you think about Bible story. This is Jordan Peterson's
I love your Bible
story.
stories.
Okay, this is a Bible story. So I've been looking at the story of Jonah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a story that you'll appreciate. So here's what happens to Jonah. He's just minding his own business, and then the voice of God comes to him, and the voice says, "You have to go to this city, Nineveh, because everybody in Nineveh is they've strayed off the path, and I'm thinking about wiping them out." But
now, of course, as a preacher, I want to say, well, a little bit more of what they had talked about at Cornell, that Nineveh isn't just some random city that's gone astray. Nineveh is the capital of Assyria, and they're the empire that is devouring the world. So these are the baddies. These are the baddies. These are the people that God is definitely against. So even a stronger case than Jordan is making here.
You could maybe go there and tell them like how foolish they are, and they'll straighten up, and then I won't have to destroy the city. And Jonah thinks, there's no goddamn way I'm going to do that. First of all, Nineveh is a city of his enemies.
Babylonia.
It's a city that he's not allied with, and so he thinks, well, you guys can go to hell in a handbasket, and if God wipes you out, that's perfect.
Oh, no, Jordan has it right, and they're not just they're the city of his enemies. They're the city that is, they are. It would be like a Ukrainian being told to go to Moscow and say 40 days and Moscow will be overturned. You need to repent. No, I'd like Moscow to be overturned. Thank you.
Fine with me.
Right.
And then he also thinks, like any wise man would, it's like, I see, this is the task you have for me. It's like, there's 150,000 people there. I'm a foreigner. I'm going to go there and tell them how they're misbehaving, and that's going to work out well for me. So he thinks, to hell with that, like any sensible person would. And he doesn't say what he has to say. Right. So then he hops on a boat and he gets the hell out of there. Well, it turns out that God's not very happy if you're informed that you have something to say and then you don't say it. So the storms come and the waves rise, and now the ship's in danger.
And that's something to say and you don't say it. This is everybody has this, preachers, speakers. This is one of Jordan's things right now, saying what has to be said. Now, I'm going to talk about that a lot more as we go, because wisdom is, of course, knowing what to say when and to whom. But this is a big thing about keeping silent, because that's also part of Jordan's longer theme of tyranny, that tyrannies are allowed to develop because good people keep silent.
Danger. Okay, so what does that mean?
Got in the whale.
Yes, that's right. It means that if you don't say what you have to say when you're called upon to say it, you'll put the whole damn ship at risk. Now the soldiers figure. So there's
Jordan's. See how he's taken this story and made it wisdom about saying what you have to be said. And again, this is a classic Jordan Peterson move that for many people they say, the Bible teaches that. Yeah, the Bible teaches that. That's what the story teaches. Oh. Well, maybe the Bible might teach some other things that could help me.
Figure this out, or the sailors, they figure out, there must be someone on the boat that isn't right with God, and that's why we're in danger of being swamped. So they will go and ask everybody, and Jonah, to his credit, says, yeah, it's me. I had the voice of conscience made itself manifest to me. I had a task to do. I refused it. I'm screwing things up. And the sailors actually try to save him, but it doesn't work, so they throw him overboard. Now you think, okay, Jonah's got what he deserves because he shut the hell up.
Maher is listening to him. You can see it right there. Wheels are turning in Maher.
When he had something to say, and now he's going to die. And you think, that's pretty damn rough. And partly what that means is, if you hold your tongue when you have something to say, then you're going to put the ship at risk, and you'll be lucky if you don't die. All right, but that's not enough. That's not nearly enough, because that isn't all that happens if you don't say what you're called upon to say. So the next thing that happens is Jonah's drowning away. That's about as bad as it gets. And then this creature from hell itself comes up from the bottom of the abyss and takes him down. And so now he's in hell for 3 days. And so that's the next part of the story, which is that if you're called upon to say what you have to say and you refuse it, you'll end up in a place where you wish you were dead.
The whale?
Now, again, Jordan has sort of secularized it, but it lands for his audience here.
Oh,
yeah, it's the whale.
Oh, okay.
But it's the same thing. Like that in the story, the whale is described as hell. It's exactly the same idea.
In Religulist, the guy who was arguing with me, and he said this point was very important to him. He said, the Bible does not say whale; it says big fish. Okay, well now it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, it's the thing. Well, what it is,
and of course Jordan. Well, Pinocchio, monstrous.
It's a representation of the thing that dwells in the dark.
It's so interesting that you see the lessons in these, and I just always read these things as like super fucking stupid from the.
And we have to blame the church for some of this, because how well have we communicated here? Jordan has clearly landed a Bible lesson that Maher respects.
Bronze Age, and obviously they were telling people something. I mean, whoever wrote this was had a message in mind.
Well, they were trying to they were trying to figure out by telling stories how the state itself got corrupted. And this is one of those stories. So the story.
There's one of the big themes that's you could see in the Exodus seminar, Jordan really understanding that as the message of the Pentateuch. That's why when I get into the Exodus seminar videos, it's a very political treatment. Now, when I say political, I don't mean it in the way that people think political in terms of, red state Bible people versus blue state atheist people. It's about the proper shape of the nation. And that's a real turn that Jordan makes from, and it's a proper turn given the two books, from Genesis, where it's a family and it's personal, to Exodus, which is the birth of a nation.
Story is, here's how the state gets corrupted. You're called upon to tell your fellow man, enemy or not.
Now remember that Maher earlier said that God is corrupt. Now Peterson is addressing corruption here.
When self got corrupted. And this is one of those stories. So the story is, here's how the state gets corrupted. You're called upon to tell your fellow man, enemy or not, when they're not behaving properly. When your conscience tells you to do that, you're called upon to do that. If you don't do that, the whole ship will start to rock.
But do you think the ancients who were reading this at the time, and they read the story about he gets swallowed by the big fish or the whale, you think they got this message? They were like, yeah, but what this really means is when you're called upon, excuse me, I'm talking, when you're called upon, then you step up and do it.
No, I would say it's a step, and it's a dreamlike step in the developing of understanding. So before you fully understand something, you can represent it in a story.
Now we're back to the first lesson in the Genesis series, because it's basically what the point he made in that video.
Right? It's kind of halfway. A kid will start to understand something by acting it out.
They may. I mean, they may have gotten it, or they may have gotten it on an unconscious level, right?
They got it at an implicit level, which is what you.
Level.
Yeah, well,
right.
that's what you get when you watch a story. Is you get it at an implicit level, and it's actually very powerful, right? I mean, when people go to movies, most of the time, most people when they go to movies don't sit around afterwards and discuss what the movie meant. They just enjoy the story.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they didn't learn anything. It just means they don't reflect on what they learned. Now, the people who came up with these stories, they were telling the stories because the stories were really interesting. But the question, there's a deeper question, is, well, why the hell was that story interesting? And why was it remembered? And so what happens to Jonah is that he's in the whale for 3 days. And then he thinks, now I'm in hell. Okay, I'm gonna repent of my inadequacy. I'm willing to say what I have to say. So the whale spits him up on the beach. Then he goes to Nineveh and he tells everybody what the hell they're doing wrong, and God decides to spare the city. And so for me, this story encapsulates.
It's a win-win.
It's a little hard on Jonah. There's the whole hell thing. He does. He lived. That's right. It's a rebirth story too.
Did he relocate to Nineveh?
No, it's just a pilgrimage to Nineveh.
No, Nineveh ate Israel.
Okay, so he did. Okay,
but he goes there, and then the city is in fact saved. But it's perfect, Bill, because what it shows, and I know you know this because you wouldn't speak.
Oh, he's in full evangelist mode here.
The way you speak, and this is true of comedians in general. You know that you have a moral obligation, like a deep and profound moral obligation.
I do.
To say what you have to say. And,
you're right.
Well, then you might say, well, what?
And now he's basically making a Tim Keller move, because Tim Keller's evangelistic strategy was always to show people, this is what you really believe. This is a better way to get there.
What would happen if people didn't say that? Well, that's the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. If there isn't anyone who's left who is good and will tell the truth, then the whole city disappears. And the same thing happens in the story of Jonah.
So
it turns to hell. Everything turns to hell if you don't say what you have to say.
Where is North America now on this scale of, like, how many?
Well, you tell me.
I mean,
you tell me. What do you see in Hollywood? How terrified are people of telling their truthful stories now?
Everybody.
Okay,
I mean, we're in a terrible place, and I mean, look, I'm not going to get into the strike stuff, but it's it's rough not being able to put a voice out there. And I'm not just talking about mine, but our show is one of the few places where you would see people of differing viewpoints. Instead of you watch Fox News, you watch MSNBC, you know exactly what they're going to.
And then here's the application. I mean, why is Jordan so effective? You just saw it here. You just saw it here. So that's all the time I have now for this, but and then later with the family, it's a fascinating interview. Anyway, I just wanted to give a little bit of attention to this, so leave a comment. Let me know what you think.